Let's talk about The Tainted Cup, shall we? So, The Tainted Cup is a new novel by Robert Jackson Bennett. If I had to sum it up in a couple of words, it would be Sherlock Holmes, giant aquatic leviathans, and mushrooms. So if any of that sounds like your bag, I would stick along for the ride because this might be creeping its way to the top of your TBR. I will start off by saying that I really enjoyed this book. It is a murder mystery set in a world inspired by feudal Japan, where they have built layers and layers of walls to protect the city in the centre of this kingdom. I don't know if it's kingdom, land, country, because there are these giant aquatic leviathans that are constantly breaching from the ocean and throwing themselves at these walls, trying to attack the people on land. So it's a very common occurrence. People are often evacuated into the centre rings of this country, and basically everyone's just in a constant state of, well, shit, when's the next giant, dramatic, life-changing event going to happen? And it only feels like it's going to be a matter of time until these giant leviathans break through and just kill everyone. This is a biochemical world, so all of their science is based in plants, basically. So my favourite one was that they have a fungus that acts as an air conditioner. So it sucks air in, cleans it, and then spits it out colder than it was before. You have various, biochemical grafts that people can take and implant in their bodies. We follow Dineas Cole, who is an engraver. So he has been grafted so that he can remember pretty much anything. This is aided by smelling different scents. So it's if he's trying to engrave something in his mind, he'll smell a specific scent. He'll look at everything while smelling this scent, and then later he uses that same scent to trigger those memories. He works as assistant investigator to Anna Delabra, who is our Sherlock Holmes character. She is heavily autistic coded, though it's not said in so many words. She doesn't care what anyone thinks. She is very easily overstimulated to the point where she does not leave her house, and she wears a blindfold by choice, even though she can see. And she has grafts on her fingertips that means she can read any writing written on paper just by feeling the paper, which is fucking sick. And she has been directed to investigate this murder that has happened on the estate of a very well-off clan of families called the Hazas. When Dineas gets there, it is his job to engrave the death scene. So he is the one there to interview people, to engrave the scene. There's no pictures or anything. He literally just stands there and stares at everything, engraving it into his mind to then take to Anna, who won't leave her room if she really doesn't have to. I get it. It's a mood. But the way that this man has been killed is disgusting. He has had a plant sprout out of him so violently and abruptly, and to an extent that it is shot through the roof of the house as well, causing damage and structural damage to the house. And obviously he is just essentially a bunch of kebabs at this point. He is just the world's biggest kebab. But he is very dead, and it's very confusing as to why he's there in the first place, how this happened, what caused it, and it is Dineas and Anna's job to work that out. This brings us on a big tale of obviously a mystery, but it takes us right to the outer wall of this country where there is another breach. And I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'm going to get into spoiler territory. But one thing leads to another. It's an interesting mystery, but I will say, and I heard Murphy Napier say this in her review of it as well in one of her reading blogs, that although this is a murder mystery, the murder mystery is the least interesting part. It's fairly average murder mystery. I didn't see the twists and turns coming necessarily. I kind of had an idea about who was going to do it, who was the culprit towards the end. I saw that last twist coming. But what is so interesting is the world and these characters. The characters specifically, Dineas is dyslexic. Again, not said in so many words, but that is a big thing that he struggles with because he's not open about it, and he thinks he's hiding that information and feels quite guilty about it because he just cannot read. So if he's presented evidence that is a written piece of paper, he has to take hours out of his day to sit there and work out exactly what it is that is written on this paper because he has such a hard time reading. I thought that rep was handled really well. I thought it was described in a really interesting way, and I think the way that he overcomes that and the ways that he finds to circumnavigate that issue that he has It was really, really great and I love to see it. I will say this is one of those books that has lots of quite complicated names, so they're not names that are necessarily phonically recognisable or phonically familiar. As someone who is an Anglophone person, I don't think they'd necessarily be familiar to other people who are maybe not Anglophone. I think they're just like heavily fantasy words. But because there are quite a few characters in this story and they all have quite similar titles because we're dealing with like the military and their ranks, lots of people have quite similar names and I got a little bit confused. So you might have that issue as well. If you have that issue, I would maybe recommend picking up the audiobook, though I will be honest, I don't know if the audiobook is out yet. This book sets up nicely to be obviously the first one in a trilogy. I am definitely going to be picking up the next two when they come out because I'm really intrigued. This set up a much bigger plot, which is also mysterious and sort of has a much wider scope than this little murder mystery. It's not that little, actually, quite a lot of people died. I think the task of setting a murder mystery in a world where you have to explain so much about the world building and how the science works and how people go about their day-to-day lives and what's considered normal and what people have access to and what people don't have access to. I think Robert Jackson Bennett handled that in a really smart way and a really good way, because at no point did I feel completely lost as to like why this clue is important because of this scientific thing in his world that I am not familiar with. He does a really good job of laying the foundation of your knowledge and then introducing the clue that's like, and this is why that's important. And you go, oh, I get it. Okay, next clue. There's a lot of dialogue in this, and I think that is usually quite a good way to drop in those world building facts. I didn't feel like it was very lore dumpy, which is definitely a good thing. It is a relatively chunky book. I think it's just over 400 pages, but I felt it needed to be that long. I don't think there were any areas where you could have cut things. I think the bit that most intrigued me about this book was the Leviathans. I really, really want to find out more about these because in this book, they're definitely they're important, but they are a background element. They're almost just like a natural disaster. It's not controlled, but like the consequences are obviously really quite important and going to affect the story. I will say, without spoiling anything, that it does seem like the Leviathans may play bigger parts in the later books, so I am very excited for that. Overall, I would really, really recommend this book if you like any of the things that I've just been speaking about. If you like murder mysteries, if you like plant science, it's not really magic, it feels a little bit like magic, but plant science, biochemical worlds. If you like sort of the concept of feudal Japan, it's not said in so many words, but the way that the world is laid out, it's jungles in like a tropical climate. You've got what are essentially kaijus, and some of the clothing and the costumes sounds like the sort of thing that feudal Japanese people used to wear. If any of that sounds up your alley, please pick this up. It is really, really good. I was a huge fan of the Foundryside trilogy as well, and I think this is psyching up to be as good, if not better, because it's got plants in it and I really like plants. If you have read it already, please let me know what you think about it. I thought this was great, if that wasn't clear already. And thanks very much for watching. I will see you next Sunday.